I've always been able to read people like open books, but I never expected my mother-in-law's latest chapter to be quite so deadly. My name is Lexis, and I'm a body language expert who's spent the last decade helping law enforcement catch liars and manipulators. Ironic, considering I missed the biggest manipulator of all living right under my nose, or rather in the mansion next door. Darling, you're fidgeting with your watch again, my husband Valentino whispered, his warm hand covering mine as we sat in his family's ornate meeting room. The antique grandfather clock in the corner ticked away ominously, marking the minutes until the trust meeting would begin. Sorry, I murmured, forcing my hands still. Something feels off today. The double doors swung open, and there she was, Cadence, my mother-in-law, dressed in her signature pearl gray suit that probably cost more than my car. Her smile didn't reach her eyes as she glided into the room, followed by our family lawyer, Ezra. Everyone, thank you for coming, Cadence announced, her voice honey-sweet but her micro-expressions screaming danger. I'd seen that same combination in countless interrogation rooms. Before we begin, I've prepared some refreshments. Our family dog, Max, trotted in behind her, tail wagging. I watched as Cadence reached into her pocket and pulled out what looked like homemade dog treats. Max has been such a good boy lately, she cooed, offering him one. The massive German shepherd hesitated, unusual for our typically food-motivated furball. My brother Noel caught my eye from across the room. He'd always been my silent support system, and right now, his slight head tilt told me he'd noticed something too. Mother, perhaps we should start the meeting, Valentino suggested, checking his phone. I have a conference call in 2 hours. Cadence's left eye twitched, a tell I'd documented countless times during our forced family dinners. Of course, dear. Ezra, shall we begin? As Ezra started discussing the family trust updates, I watched Cadence's hands. Her right index finger tapped rhythmically against her thigh, another tell. She was anticipating something. My phone buzzed quietly. A text from Robin, my best friend who worked at the local vet clinic. Got your message? Those symptoms you mentioned about Max last week aren't normal. Want me to run some tests? I glanced at Max, who had retreated to the corner, the untouched treat lying abandoned on the Persian rug. In 15 years, I'd never seen him refuse food. Lexis, Cadence's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. Do pay attention, dear. This concerns your future too, such as it is. The subtle emphasis made Valentino stiffen beside me. But before he could speak, Max suddenly swayed on his feet. Oh dear, Cadence said, her concern perfectly practiced. Perhaps he's coming down with something? I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I'll take him outside for some air. Nonsense. Cadence waved dismissively. Serena, dear, would you? My husband's cousin rose gracefully, but I was already moving. I insist, I said, matching Cadence's syrupy tone. After all, he's technically my dog. As I helped Max out of the room, I pocketed the abandoned treat, feeling Cadence's eyes boring into my back. In the hallway, I quickly texted Robin. Need you to analyze something ASAP. Think someone's trying to create a distraction. My brother appeared beside me, his presence steady and reassuring. You saw it too? I nodded, keeping my voice low. She wants chaos during this meeting. The question is why? The trust review isn't for another 6 months, Noel mused. Unless she's already made changes we don't know about, I finished, and she needs everyone too distracted to notice. Max leaned heavily against my leg, and I ran my hand through his fur. Don't worry, boy. We'll figure out what she's up to. Be careful, Lex, Noel warned. You know how she gets when she feels threatened. I smiled grimly, remembering all the times Cadence had tried to undermine my marriage, my position in the family, my very existence. Oh, I know, but this time she's made a crucial mistake. What's that? She forgot what I do for a living. I straightened my shoulders, already formulating a plan. I don't just read body language, I understand the psychology behind it. And right now, every fiber of her being is screaming that she's hiding something big. The meeting room door opened, and Valentino poked his head out. Everything okay out here? I squeezed his hand reassuringly. Everything's fine, love. Just giving Max some space to recover. As we returned to the meeting, I caught Cadence's calculated stare. She thought she was the puppet master, pulling everyone's strings from her perfectly manicured perch. But I'd spent my career unraveling people like her, and I was about to become her worst nightmare. Game on, mother dear. The treat felt heavy in my pocket as I drove to Robin's veterinary clinic the next morning. Max had recovered after a restless night, but the incident left a knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. "You're sure about this?" Robin asked, examining the treat under bright fluorescent lights. Her usual cheerful demeanor was replaced with professional concern. "Testing for toxins isn't cheap, and if you're wrong—" "I'm not wrong," I said, pacing her office. You should have seen her face when Max wouldn't eat it. She was disappointed. My phone buzzed. Valentino. "Hey, love, everything okay?" "Fine," I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just having coffee with Robin." "Mother's asking about Max. She wants to bring over some more of those treats she made." I caught Robin's eye, and she quickly shook her head. "Tell her thanks, but Max is on a special diet right now. Vet's orders." After hanging up, Robin leaned back in her chair. "You need to tell him, Lexus." "Tell him what? That I think his mother tried to poison our dog to disrupt a trust meeting?" I laughed humorlessly. He'd never believe me without proof. "Then let's get proof." Robin carefully sealed the treat in an evidence bag. "I know someone at the toxicology lab who owes me a favor. We can have results in 48 hours. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Noel. "Cadence just called. She's organizing an emergency family dinner tonight. Says she has wonderful news to share." "Perfect timing," I muttered, showing Robin the message. "You're not actually going, are you?" I grabbed my bag, already heading for the door. Of course I am, and I'm going to watch every single micro-expression on her face while she tries to play whatever game she's planning. "Lexus, wait. Robin caught up with me in the parking lot. You need backup. Let me come with you." "To a family dinner? She'll be suspicious." "Exactly. I'll be your control group." Robin grinned. "Besides, she's always trying to set me up with that creepy cousin of Valentino's. Might as well make it worth her while." That evening, Cadence's dining room was filled with the usual suspects. Serena sat next to Robin, practically preening under Cadence's approving glances. Noel positioned himself strategically between me and the matriarch, while Valentino chatted with Ezra about some legal matter. "Before we begin," Cadence announced, standing at the head of the table, "I want to apologize for yesterday's unpleasantness. How is Max doing, dear?" "Much better," I replied, noting how her right hand clenched slightly around her wineglass, "though we're being careful with his diet." "Such a shame," she sighed. "He used to love my homemade treats." "Speaking of treats," Serena chimed in, "Aunt Cadence, weren't you going to share some good news?" "Ah, yes." Cadence's face lit up with practiced enthusiasm. "I've decided to make some changes to the family trust. Nothing major, just updating it for the modern era." Beside me, Noel tensed. Under the table, I pressed my foot against his, our childhood signal for stay calm. "What kind of changes?" Valentino asked, frowning. "Oh, just ensuring the right people are taken care of," Cadence waved dismissively. "Ezra has been incredibly helpful in restructuring everything." I watched Ezra carefully. His fork paused halfway to his mouth for exactly 2 seconds, a hesitation that spoke volumes. "When were you planning to tell us about these changes?" I asked, keeping my tone light. Cadence's smile tightened. "I'm telling you now, aren't I? Unless you think you have some special right to advance notice." "Mother," Valentino warned, but I placed my hand on his arm. "Not at all," I said smoothly. "I'm just curious about the timing, considering the regular review isn't for months." "Well," Serena interrupted, "I think it's wonderful. Aunt Cadence always knows what's best for the family." My phone vibrated. A text from Robin. "Her pupils dilated when you mentioned the timing. She's hiding something big." "Actually," I stood up, raising my glass, "why don't we toast to these changes, to family, and to truth coming to light?" Cadence's glass trembled slightly as she raised it. "To family," she echoed, but her eyes were cold. Later that night, as Valentino and I drove home, he was unusually quiet. "You think something's wrong with the trust changes, don't you?" he finally asked. I chose my words carefully. "I think your mother is very protective of what she considers hers. She's just trying to take care of everyone." "Is she?" I turned to face him. "Or is she trying to control everyone?" Before he could answer, my phone lit up with a message from Robin. "Lab results tomorrow morning. Be ready." I squeezed Valentino's hand, hoping I was prepared for whatever tomorrow would reveal. Because one thing was certain, Cadence's perfect facade was starting to crack, and I needed to be ready when it finally shattered. The lab results lay on Robin's desk like a loaded gun. I read them 3 times before the words finally sank in. Thallium, Robin said quietly. Low dose, but enough to make a dog seriously ill without being immediately fatal. It's designed to cause distress over time. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone to call Noel. He answered on the first ring. Tell me. She did it, I said, my voice barely steady. We have proof. The treats were poisoned. Jesus Christ. There was a long pause. What's our next move? Meet me at Riverside Park in 20 minutes. Bring your laptop. Robin grabbed my arm before I could leave. Lexus, this is serious. We should go to the police. Not yet, I said. First, we need to understand why. This wasn't just about disrupting a meeting. It's bigger than that. The park was quiet this early in the morning. Noel was already there, sitting at our usual bench, his laptop open. I did some digging, he said as I sat down. Ezra's been making multiple visits to the estate over the past month. Late visits, off the books. Show me. He pulled up a series of security camera screenshots from the estate's gate. Ezra's car entering at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., sometimes even midnight. That's not normal legal counsel behavior, I muttered. There's more. Noel pulled up another window. I found this buried in the county records. Cadence filed for a trust amendment 3 weeks ago. My phone buzzed. Valentino. I ignored it. The timing matches when Max first started showing symptoms, I said. She needed a distraction big enough to keep everyone from asking questions about the trust changes. But why now? Noel asked. What's so urgent? Before I could answer, another text came through, this time from Serena. We need to talk. Alone. It's about Cadence. I showed Noel the message. Think it's a trap? Probably, but we need information. I agreed to meet Serena at a small cafe downtown. She was already there when I arrived, nervously shredding a napkin. I overheard something, she said without preamble. Last night after everyone left. Cadence was talking to Ezra about securing the inheritance before something expires. What expires? Serena glanced around before leaning closer. I don't know exactly, but she mentioned a deadline. Something about original trust conditions and a 30-year clause. My phone buzzed again. Valentino for the 3rd time. I finally answered. Where are you? He asked, worry evident in his voice. Mother's called another family meeting for this afternoon. She says it's urgent. Of course she does, I muttered. I'll be there. After hanging up, I turned back to Serena. Why are you telling me this? She looked down at her shredded napkin. Because I saw her making those treats. She was different, scary. And I may want my share of the inheritance, but not like this. Back at Robin's clinic, we huddled around her computer, searching for information about the original trust. There, Noel pointed at the screen, the 30-year clause. The original trust was set up by Valentino's grandfather with a condition. After 30 years, if certain requirements weren't met, the entire estate would go to charity. And let me guess, Robin said, that deadline is coming up? Next month, I confirmed. Cadence is trying to rewrite the trust before it triggers. My phone lit up with another text, from Ezra this time. Need to speak with you privately. It's about the trust changes. Meet me at my office? It could be another trap, Noel warned. Or it could be our chance to get actual proof, I countered. Ezra's been acting strange. Maybe he's having second thoughts. I'm coming with you, Noel insisted. At Ezra's office, we found him pacing nervously. I can't be part of this anymore, he blurted out as soon as we entered. The changes she wants, they're not just modifications. She's trying to completely override the original trust. Show me, I demanded. He pulled out a thick folder. The original trust required the inheritance to be used for family unity and charitable works. Cadence's changes would give her complete control, with no obligations. And the 30-year deadline? Ezra's head snapped up. How did you... We know about the clause, Noel interrupted. What we need is proof of what she's doing. Ezra hesitated, then reached into his desk drawer. I kept copies of everything, including her instructions about the trust meeting distraction. My phone buzzed one final time. Valentino again. Where are you? Everyone's waiting. I looked at the damning documents in my hands, then at Noel and Ezra. It's time to end this. Let's go give Cadence the family meeting she's been asking for. As we drove to the estate, I touched the lab results in my pocket. One way or another, this game of manipulation and poison was about to end. The estate's driveway seemed longer than usual as memories flooded back. Every subtle slight, every manipulative move Cadence had made over the years. "Remember the Christmas incident?" Noel asked, as if reading my thoughts. "How could I forget?" I replied, remembering that disaster from 3 years ago. 3 years earlier. "Oh dear," Cadence had said, examining the antique vase I'd given Valentino. "It's unique, though I suppose you couldn't have known it's a replica. The real ones are quite expensive." It wasn't a replica. I'd spent months tracking down that specific piece, knowing Valentino collected that artist's work. "Mother," Valentino had protested, but Cadence wasn't finished. "It's the thought that counts," she'd continued, her smile sharp as a knife. "Though speaking of thoughts, I do hope you're not thinking of starting a family yet. The trust has very specific requirements about heirs, and well, we wouldn't want any complications." Present day. "We're here," Noel announced, parking behind Valentino's car. Inside, the familiar faces were arranged around the meeting room. Valentino stood as soon as he saw me, concern etched on his features. "Where have you been?" he whispered as I took my seat. "Gathering evidence," I whispered back, squeezing his hand. Cadence swept into the room, Serena trailing behind her like a shadow. "Now that everyone's finally here," she said, throwing me a pointed look, "we can begin." "Yes," I agreed, standing up. "Let's begin with the truth." "Lexus," Valentino warned, but I was done playing nice. 3 days ago," I announced, "someone tried to poison our dog, not to kill him, just to make him sick enough to disrupt an important meeting about the family trust." The room fell silent. Cadence's face remained perfectly composed, but her left hand twitched, a tell I'd documented countless times. "That's a serious accusation," she said smoothly. "It is." I pulled out the lab results, which is why I had the treats analyzed. "Would you like to explain the thallium, mother dear?" Valentino snatched the report, his face paling as he read. "This can't be right." "Oh, it gets better," I continued, nodding to Noel, who started distributing copies of Ezra's documents. While everyone was worried about Max, Cadence was quietly rewriting the trust. "Care to tell everyone about the 30-year clause?" Cadence's composure cracked. "Ezra, you fool." "I won't help you commit fraud," Ezra interrupted, standing. "The original trust requirements are clear. If the family doesn't meet the charitable obligations by next month, everything goes to charity." "You're trying to steal our inheritance?" Serena gasped. "I'm trying to protect it," Cadence snapped. "My father-in-law was a sentimental old fool. His ridiculous requirements about charity and family unity are the whole point," I cut in. "The trust wasn't meant to be a power play. It was meant to keep the family together." "Together?" Cadence laughed bitterly. "Like you've kept this family together? Coming in here with your working-class background, your crude profession?" "My profession?" I stepped closer. "You mean the one that lets me see every lie you tell? Like how your right eye twitches when you're planning something, or how you tap your fingers when you're anticipating a scheme working out?" "Valentino," Cadence appealed to her son, "surely you can't believe these ridiculous accusations." But Valentino was still staring at the lab results. "You tried to poison Max?" he asked quietly. "Our dog? Of course not. I just needed him, indisposed, for a few hours, to protect our family's future." "By committing fraud?" Noel asked. "By poisoning innocent animals?" "Everything I've done has been for this family." "No," I corrected her. "Everything you've done has been for control. But here's what's going to happen now. You're going to step down as trustee, or these documents go to the police, all of them." The room erupted in chaos. Serena was crying. Ezra was trying to explain himself to Valentino, and Cadence just stood there, her perfect world crumbling around her. "You'll regret this," she hissed as she walked past me. "Actually," I replied, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I think the only regret here is that it took us this long to stop you." As the dust settled, Valentino pulled me aside. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? Would you have believed me?" He looked away, and I had my answer. "The trust meeting is in 2 days. Noel reminded everyone. We need to decide how to move forward. I watched as Cadence stormed out, Serena hurrying after her. The battle was won, but something told me the war was far from over. We'll figure it out, I told Valentino, watching his conflicted expression. Together. But as we left the estate, I couldn't shake the feeling that Cadence had one more card to play. After all, cornered predators are the most dangerous kind. The morning of the trust meeting arrived with an unexpected text from Serena. Emergency. Meet me at the coffee shop on 5th. Now. It's a trap, Robin said when I called her. Has to be. Probably, I agreed. But I need to know what Cadence is planning. The coffee shop was quiet when I arrived. Serena sat in a corner booth, her designer handbag clutched tight against her chest. She's gone crazy, Serena blurted out as soon as I sat down. Like, actually crazy. She was up all night shredding documents and making calls. What kind of documents? I don't know, but she stopped abruptly, staring at something behind me. I turned to see Cadence herself walking through the door, followed by 2 men in suits. Private investigators, Cadence announced, sliding into the booth next to Serena. They've been quite busy looking into your past, dear daughter-in-law. Whatever you think you've found? Oh, I found plenty. She smiled, all teeth. Like your little side business 5 years ago, consulting for defense attorneys, helping criminals beat lie detector tests? My stomach dropped. I helped wrongly accused people prepare for polygraphs. Everything was legal, but it looks terrible, doesn't it? Especially combined with these. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos, me meeting with Ezra, talking to Noel, even the lab results in my hand. You're trying to frame me for conspiracy? I'm protecting my family from a manipulative gold digger who's trying to steal our inheritance. Her voice carried just loud enough for nearby tables to hear. The question is, what will Valentino think when he sees all this? My phone buzzed. Speaking of Valentino, where are you? Meeting starts in an hour. He already knows everything, I told Cadence. Does he know about the offshore account you opened last month? That made me pause. What? Cadence's smile widened. Oh? Not your account? Someone must have stolen your identity then. How unfortunate. I stood up so quickly my chair scraped against the floor. You're framing me. Prove it. She waved the investigators forward. These gentlemen have quite a file on you. Bank records, suspicious meetings, even evidence you've been planning this takeover for years. Nobody will believe you, won't they? After all, you're the expert manipulator, the professional liar. My hands shook as I called Noel. Get Robin and meet me at Ezra's office, now. 30 minutes later, we huddled in Ezra's office, reviewing Cadence's evidence. She's good, Robin admitted, examining the bank documents. These look real. They're forgeries, Ezra said, adjusting his glasses. Good ones, but I can prove they're fake. The routing numbers are wrong for the dates listed. Will that be enough? Noel asked. My phone buzzed again, this time from Serena. She's heading to the meeting early, says she has proof you're trying to steal everything. We need to move, I said, gathering the documents. Ezra, can you prove the forgery in front of everyone? He nodded. I have the original bank records right here. The drive to the estate felt like racing against a tsunami. When we arrived, Cadence was already holding court in the meeting room. And as you can see, she was saying, Lexis has been planning this for years. The poisoned treats were her doing, to frame me. That's interesting, I interrupted, walking in with my team. Especially since we have video of you making those treats. Cadence faltered. What? Robin stepped forward, holding up her phone. Security footage from the estate kitchen. My clinic's not the only one with cameras. And these bank documents? Ezra added, spreading out the proof of forgery. The routing numbers are impossible for the dates listed. They're forgeries. Valentino stood up, his face a mask of fury. Mother, what have you done? What I had to, she snapped. This woman comes into our family, starts turning everyone against me. You did that yourself, I cut in. Every manipulation, every lie, every attempt to control everyone, it was all you. The police are on their way, Noel announced, his phone in hand. They're very interested in the attempted poisoning and fraud charges. Cadence's face went white. You wouldn't dare. Try me. The room erupted in chaos again, but this time it was different. This time the truth was fully exposed, and no amount of manipulation could hide it. As security arrived to escort Cadence out, she turned to me one last time. This isn't over. Actually, I replied, holding up the original trust documents. I think it is. But watching her being led away, I couldn't shake the feeling that she had one final card to play. After all, a lifetime of manipulation doesn't end quietly. She's requesting a private meeting, Valentino said, holding his phone like it might bite him. Just you and her at the police station. 3 days had passed since Cadence's arrest. I'd spent them sorting through the mess of forged documents and trying to piece together just how deep her deception went. It's another trap, Robin warned from her perch on my office desk. Obviously, I agreed, but I need to know what she's planning. I'll come with you, Valentino offered. I shook my head. No, she'll never show her hand if you're there. The police station was cold and sterile. Cadence sat at the metal table in her designer jumpsuit, somehow managing to look elegant even in custody. Orange isn't your color, I said, sitting across from her. Always so clever with words, she smiled. That's what I admired about you, you know, before you became a threat. I was never a threat until you made me one. No? She leaned forward. Then why did you meet with my late husband's mistress last year? My blood ran cold. What? Oh, yes. I know all about that little meeting. Did you think I wouldn't find out? That woman had no right to any part of this family's legacy. She wasn't asking for money, I said carefully. She just wanted to return some letters. Letters that could have destroyed everything. Cadence's composure cracked. Do you know what would happen if people knew the truth about Richard's double life, about the other family he kept? My phone buzzed. Noel. Found something big. Don't react. Is that what this is about? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Protecting the family name? The name, the money, the legacy, all of it. She straightened up. And I'm willing to make you a deal. I'm listening. Drop the charges. Help me regain control of the trust. In exchange, I'll make sure certain documents never see the light of day. What documents? Her smile turned predatory. The ones proving Valentino isn't Richard's biological son. The room seemed to tilt. You're lying. Am I? Why do you think I fought so hard to keep control? The 30-year clause doesn't just require charitable works. It requires legitimate heirs. My phone buzzed again. Noel, don't believe anything. We found the real documents. She's bluffing. You know what your problem is, Cadence? I stood up slowly. You've played this game so long, you've forgotten what truth looks like. Excuse me? Noel found Richard's real documents, all of them, including the DNA test that proves Valentino is his son. You forged the fake ones, didn't you? Just like you forged the bank records? Her face went slack. That's impossible. I destroyed the copies in your house? Yes, but Richard kept originals in a safety deposit box, one you never knew about. The door opened and Serena walked in, holding a thick folder. Found these while cleaning out the estate office, she announced, hidden behind the old painting. Interesting reading. Cadence lunged for the folder, but the guard stepped between us. It's over, I said quietly. The real question is, what will Valentino think when he learns you tried to make him doubt his own father? You wouldn't dare tell him. Actually, Valentino's voice came from the doorway. She doesn't have to. He stood there, face pale but determined, Noel beside him holding the original documents. Val, Cadence started, but he cut her off. All these years, he said, you've manipulated everyone, even tried to make me doubt my own wife. But this? Trying to make me doubt Dad? I was protecting you. No, he replied firmly. You were protecting yourself, and now you've lost everything. My phone lit up with a message from Ezra. Trust meeting rescheduled for tomorrow. Everything's ready. The 30-year clause expires next week, I told Cadence. But don't worry, we've already arranged for the charitable foundation to be set up, the one Richard always wanted. You can't? We can, Valentino interrupted. And we will. Goodbye, Mother. As we left the station, Serena caught up with us. There's something else you should see. In the estate office, I found records of other families she's done this to, other trusts she's manipulated. Send everything to the prosecutor, I instructed. And Serena, thank you for choosing the right side. She managed a small smile. Family should help family. The real way, not her way. That evening, as Valentino and I sat in our kitchen, he finally broke down. "How did I not see it?" he whispered. "All these years?" I took his hand. "Because she was your mother, and sometimes love blinds us to the truth." "What happens now?" "Now?" I smiled. "We honor your father's real wishes. We build something good from all this mess." But as I held him, I couldn't help wondering what other secrets might still be buried in that estate. After all, people like Cadence rarely work alone. The morning of the final trust meeting dawned bright and cold. I found Valentino in his father's old study, holding a framed photo. "Dad always said the trust wasn't about money," he murmured. "It was about legacy." Before I could respond, my phone rang. An unknown number. "Is this Lexus?" A woman's unfamiliar voice asked. "I'm Margaret, Richard's former secretary. I've been following the news about Cadence, and there's something you need to see." An hour later, we met Margaret at a small diner downtown. She looked exactly like a retired secretary should, neat, professional, and carrying a weathered briefcase. "I kept these," she said, pulling out a stack of letters. "Richard asked me to, in case something like this ever happened." The letters were correspondence between Richard and various charities, dating back decades. Plans for foundations, scholarship programs, community centers, all carefully documented. He knew, I realized. He knew Cadence would try to stop this. Margaret nodded. "That's why he put in the 30-year clause. He wanted to give the family time to choose the right path on their own." "But why didn't you come forward sooner?" Valentino asked. "Because of this." She pulled out one final envelope. "It's addressed to you, dated a week before he died." Valentino's hands shook as he opened it. "My son," he read aloud, "if you're reading this, then the trust is about to expire and choices must be made. Your mother will try to convince you that wealth is about power. She's wrong. It's about responsibility." His voice cracked. I squeezed his hand as he continued. "I've watched you grow into a man who understands this. You and Lexus both. That's why I made sure she would be here when the time came. Trust her instincts. She sees what others try to hide." "He knew about me?" I whispered. Margaret smiled. "He had you vetted before you even met Valentino. Said he needed someone who could stand up to Cadence when the time came." My phone buzzed. "Noel. Everyone's arriving at the estate, including some unexpected guests." At the estate, we found the meeting room packed. Ezra stood at the front looking nervous. Serena sat with Robin, both reviewing documents. But it was the group of strangers that caught my attention. "Representatives from the charities Richard worked with," Margaret explained, "all part of his plan." Suddenly, the doors burst open. Cadence strode in, flanked by two lawyers. "I'm still a beneficiary," she announced. "I have the right to be here." "Actually," Ezra stepped forward, "according to these new documents, you forfeited your rights when you attempted to fraudulently alter the trust. You can't prove—" "We can," I interrupted, holding up Richard's letters. "Your late husband left quite a paper trail." "Impossible. I destroyed everything." "Not everything," Margaret said, standing. "Hello, Cadence. Remember me?" Cadence's face went white. You were supposed to be gone." "Richard asked me to stay, to watch, to wait." "This is ridiculous," one of Cadence's lawyers started, but Ezra cut him off. "The terms are clear," he announced. "With proof of attempted fraud, Cadence's claim is void. The 30-year clause activates as Richard intended." "No!" Cadence lunged for the documents, but security was faster. "Mother, stop," Valentino said quietly. "It's over. This is what Dad wanted." As Cadence was led away again, screaming about betrayal, I opened Richard's file of charity plans. He had it all mapped out, I told the representatives. Education programs, medical research, community development, everything detailed and ready to go. "Then let's honor his wishes," Valentino said firmly. "All of them." The next hour was a blur of signatures and handshakes. The trust would fund the charitable foundations while maintaining the family estate as a base of operations. Valentino would oversee everything, with me handling the investigative side to prevent any future fraud attempts. "Your father would be proud," Margaret told Valentino as she prepared to leave. "Of both of you." After everyone left, Valentino and I stood in Richard's study, looking at his photo. He orchestrated all of this, I mused. Found me, positioned everyone just right. Like a chess master, Valentino agreed. But why didn't he stop Mother himself? Because he knew the family had to choose its own path. We had to prove we were better than her manipulation and greed. My phone lit up one last time. A message from an unknown number. Well played, but family secrets have a way of surviving. Good luck. I showed it to Valentino, who frowned. Think it's from Mother? No, I said slowly. I think someone else has been watching, and I have a feeling our work isn't quite finished yet. After all, in families like this, there's always another secret waiting to be uncovered. The mysterious text message kept me awake that night. At dawn, I found myself back in Richard's study, searching for anything we might have missed. I thought I'd find you here, Noel said from the doorway. You never could leave a puzzle unsolved. Something's not adding up, I muttered, running my fingers along the bookshelf. Margaret knew too much. She was too perfectly positioned. My phone rang. Robin. Turn on the news. Now. I grabbed the remote, flicking on the study's TV. The headline made my heart stop. Former secretary arrested in multi-million-dollar trust fraud scheme. Margaret wasn't Richard's only secretary, the reporter announced. She worked with multiple wealthy families, helping orchestrate trust manipulations across the country. She played us, I breathed. Not exactly, a familiar voice said. We spun around to find Serena in the doorway, holding a laptop. I've been doing some digging. Margaret worked for Richard, that's true, but she also worked for someone else we know. She turned the laptop around, showing an old photograph. Margaret, 20 years younger, standing next to a smiling Cadence. They were partners, Serena explained. Margaret would help families set up trusts. Then Cadence would come in later as a financial advisor to help manipulate them. My phone buzzed. Valentino. Found something in Dad's safe. Come quickly. In the master bedroom, Valentino stood holding a USB drive. It was behind a false panel. Dad left a video. We gathered around his laptop as Richard's face appeared on screen. He looked tired but determined. If you're watching this, he began, then Margaret has probably shown up with my letters. Don't trust her. She and Cadence have been working together for years, using family trust to fund their own schemes. I played along, pretending to be fooled while gathering evidence. That's why he set up the 30-year clause, I realized. He was building a paper trail. The real documents are in a safety deposit box, Richard continued. Box 247 at First National. The key is taped under my desk drawer. Everything you need to expose their entire operation is there. Valentino paused the video. We need to move fast. Already on it, Noel said, hanging up his phone. Police are heading to Margaret's last known location. At the bank, the safety deposit box revealed decades of evidence. Photos, recordings, bank statements showing millions flowing through shell companies. Look at this, Serena pointed to a document. They didn't just target our family. There are dozens of victims. My phone lit up, another unknown number. Smart girl, but can you prove any of it before the money disappears? They're watching us, I showed the others. They know we found the evidence. Then let's give them something to watch, Valentino said grimly. We staged a show of leaving the bank empty-handed, while Noel secretly transferred the documents to the FBI. Within hours, accounts were frozen and arrests were being made across the country. Back at the estate, we found Cadence waiting in Richard's study. I have to admit, she said quietly, I underestimated you, both of you. Why? Valentino asked. Why do this to your own family? Family? She laughed bitterly. Family is just a tool, dear. Richard knew that. Why do you think he married me in the first place? Because he needed to expose your operation, I realized. He married you to protect other families from you. Her smile faltered. He told you? He told us everything, Valentino said, in his video confession, the one we just sent to the FBI. The sound of police sirens grew louder outside. It's over, Mother, Valentino continued. Really over this time. As the police led Cadence away, I found the final piece of Richard's video message. Valentino, Lexus. His voice was softer now. I'm sorry for putting you through this, but I knew you two would figure it out. The trust isn't just about money or charity. It's about truth, about standing up to those who would corrupt family bonds for profit. Take care of each other. And remember, The greatest legacy we can leave is the courage to do what's right. That evening, as we sat in the study with Noel, Robin, and Serena, Valentino raised his glass. To Dad, he said, who taught us that real family isn't about blood or money? To Richard, we echoed. My phone buzzed one final time. From Ezra. Trust paperwork is complete. The charitable foundations are secure. No one can touch them now. I looked around at our unlikely family. My brother, my best friend, my reformed cousin-in-law, and my husband. We'd faced manipulation, poison, and betrayal, but we'd come through stronger. So, Robin grinned. What's next for the world's most interesting body language expert? I smiled, thinking of all the other families out there who might need help. I think we might have found our true calling. After all, some legacy